Maya Rodriguez walked down the long hallway of the spaceship. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She wore the dark blue uniform of ship security. On her belt hung a small weapon and a communication device. Maya had worked on the research ship Starbound for 3 years now. She knew every corner of the vessel. Behind her, 3 small creatures followed. They looked like bears but were different. Their fur sparkled like crystals in the ship's lights. Each creature had 6 legs instead of 4. Their eyes were large and purple. The creatures were young ones from a planet called Kithara. The crew called them cubs. Maya stopped at a door and pressed her hand against a panel. The door opened with a soft sound. The 3 cubs stopped too. They sat down and waited. Their purple eyes watched Maya's every move. When she stepped through the door, they got up and followed her again. Dr. Peter Blake saw this happen. He had been watching for days now. Peter studied alien creatures for his job. He knew a lot about different species in the galaxy, but he had never seen anything like this before. "Maya, wait," Peter called out. He hurried down the hallway to catch up with her. His white coat flew behind him as he walked fast. Maya turned around. "What's wrong, Doc?" Peter looked at the 3 cubs. They had stopped again and were sitting quietly. "I need to ask you something about them," he said, pointing at the young creatures. "What about them? Why do they follow you everywhere?" Peter pulled out a small computer pad. "I've been taking notes for 2 weeks. They only follow you. Not me, not the captain, not anyone else on the ship." Maya looked down at the cubs. The smallest one tilted its head to one side. Its crystal fur caught the light and made tiny rainbows on the walls. "I don't know why they do it. But you must be doing something special," Peter said. "These creatures are not supposed to act like this." "What do you mean?" Peter touched his computer pad. Words and pictures appeared on the screen. "Look at this research. Ketherans don't stay together. Even baby ones leave their parents very young. They don't make friends. They don't follow anyone. They live alone all their lives," Maya shrugged. "Maybe they're different." "No, you don't understand," Peter said. His voice got louder with excitement. "Every book about Ketherans says the same thing. They are independent. They don't form groups. They don't attach to other creatures. What these cubs are doing is impossible." The largest cub made a soft sound. It was barely a whisper. Maya looked down at it and smiled. "Hello there," she said in a gentle voice. The cub's eyes seemed to brighten. It stood up and took a step closer to Maya. Peter watched with wide eyes. "Did you see that? It responded to you." "So? Ketherans don't respond to other species. They barely talk to their own kind." Peter typed quickly on his computer pad. "This is amazing. I need to record everything." Captain Lisa Chen walked around the corner. She was a small woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She had been the captain of Starbound for 5 years. "What's all the noise about?" she asked. "Captain, you need to see this," Peter said. "The Ketheran cubs are showing behavior that goes against everything we know about their species." Captain Chen looked at Maya and the cubs. "Explain." "They follow Maya everywhere. They respond when she talks to them. According to all our research, this should be impossible." The captain studied the scene. Maya stood relaxed with her hands at her sides. The 3 cubs sat in a line behind her. They looked calm and happy. "How long has this been happening?" Captain Chen asked. 2 weeks, Peter answered. "Every day, all day. Wherever Maya goes, they try to go too." "Have you asked Maya what she thinks?" Peter looked surprised. "Well, no. I was trying to figure out the scientific reason first." Captain Chen smiled. "Maybe we should ask her." She turned to Maya. "What do you think is happening?" Maya was quiet for a moment. She watched the cubs watching her. "I think they just like being around people. But that's not possible," Peter said again. "Ketherans are solitary creatures, are they?" Maya asked. "Or is that just what the books say?" "The books are based on years of research. Research done by people who probably tried to study them like specimens in a lab," Maya said. Her voice was calm but firm. Maybe the Ketherans didn't want to be friendly with people who only saw them as things to study. Peter looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't treat them like research subjects. I treat them like crew members, I guess." Captain Chen raised her eyebrows. "How so?" "When I do my security rounds, I talk to everyone I meet. I ask how they're doing. I check if they need anything. When I started seeing the cubs in the hallways, I did the same thing with them." "You talk to them?" "Sure, I say good morning." I ask if they're okay. I tell them about my day sometimes. Maya looked down at the cubs. I don't expect them to answer. I just include them. The middle cub stood up and walked closer to Maya. It pressed its side against her leg, very gently. Peter stared. It's showing affection. Keitharans don't show affection. Maybe they do when they feel safe, Maya said. She carefully placed her hand on the cub's crystal fur. It was warm and soft. I need to study this more, Peter said. He was already typing notes. This could change everything we know about Keitharan behavior. Captain Chen watched Maya and the cubs. Maya, do you think they understand you when you talk to them? I think they understand that I'm being kind, that I see them as individuals, not just aliens. The universal translators don't work with their language, Peter said. Communication should be impossible. Maybe words aren't the only way to communicate, Maya said. The smallest cub had stood up too. It walked to Maya's other side. Soon all 3 cubs were standing close to her, but not crowding her. They seemed content just to be near. This is remarkable, Captain Chen said. Peter, I want you to document everything, but don't interfere. Let Maya continue doing whatever she's been doing. But Captain, we could learn so much if we studied this properly. We are studying it, by watching and learning, not by changing it. The captain looked at Maya. Are you comfortable with this arrangement? Maya looked down at the 3 cubs. Their purple eyes looked back at her with what seemed like trust. Yeah, I'm comfortable. They're good company. As they talked, more crew members had gathered to watch. Everyone was curious about the strange friendship between the human security officer and the alien cubs. Dr. Blake continued taking notes. He still couldn't understand how this was possible. Everything he had learned about Keitharan said they were loners. They didn't make friends. They didn't follow anyone. But here were 3 young Keitharans who had chosen to spend their time with a human. They seemed happy and relaxed. They showed behaviors that no scientist had ever recorded before. Maya started walking again. Without hesitation, the 3 cubs followed her. They moved like a small parade down the hallway of the spaceship. Peter shook his head in amazement. I need to rewrite everything we know about this species, Captain Chen smiled. Maybe Maya already has. 3 days later, alarms started ringing throughout the spaceship. Maya was in her security office when the loud sounds began. Red lights flashed on and off. The ship's computer spoke in a calm voice that somehow made everything seem more scary. Alert. Enemy ships detected. All crew report to emergency stations. Maya grabbed her equipment and ran toward the bridge. The 3 cubs had been resting near her office. When they saw her running, they got up and tried to follow her. Stay here, Maya called to them. It's not safe, but the cubs didn't listen. They ran after her as fast as their 6 legs could carry them. Captain Chen was already on the bridge when Maya arrived. The large screen at the front showed 3 dark ships moving toward them. They looked mean and dangerous. Pirates, said Jake Miller, the communications officer. He was a young man with red hair and freckles. They're demanding we surrender our research data. Can we outrun them? Captain Chen asked. No, replied Danny Park from his station. Danny was the chief engineer, a short man who knew every part of the ship. They're faster than us. Then we fight, the captain said. Maya, get your security teams ready. Maya nodded and activated her communication device. All security personnel, this is Rodriguez. Defensive positions now. The ship shook as the first enemy shot hit them. Everyone grabbed onto something to stay standing. Maya looked around and saw the 3 cubs huddled together in a corner of the bridge. Their crystal fur was standing up, showing they were scared. Jake, get those cubs to safety, Captain Chen ordered. Jake moved toward the cubs, but they ran away from him. They ran straight to Maya. I've got them, Maya said. She knelt down and spoke softly to the young creatures. Hey, it's going to be okay. I need you to go to the safe room, though. The largest cub made a sound Maya had never heard before. It was like music, but sad. The ship shook again, harder this time. Lights flickered on and off. Hull breach in Section 7, Danny reported. His voice was tight with worry. That's where we keep the adult Keitharans. Maya's heart sank. Section 7 was also where the cubs lived when they weren't following her around. Are they trapped? The blast doors sealed automatically. But there's air leaking out. If we don't fix it soon. Maya didn't wait to hear the rest. She grabbed emergency repair equipment and headed for Section 7. Behind her, she heard Captain Chen calling her name, but she didn't stop. The hallways were filled with smoke. Emergency lights made everything look red and scary. Maya put on her breathing mask and kept running. She had to save the Keitharan family. When she reached Section 7, she found something that made no sense. The heavy door that should have been locked was standing open. Inside, she could see the adult Keitharans working together to fix the hole in the ship's wall. But that wasn't the strangest part. The 3 cubs were there too, helping. Maya stared in shock. The cubs were using their natural ability to spin crystal threads. They were working with the adults to weave a patch over the hole in the ship. But according to everything Dr. Blake had taught her, Keitharans never worked together. They always worked alone. Dr. Blake arrived a moment later, breathing hard from running. When he saw what was happening, his mouth fell open. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Keitharans don't collaborate. They can't collaborate. It goes against every instinct they have." Maya ignored him and moved forward to help. The patch was almost finished, but it needed to be stronger. She pulled out her emergency repair kit and started adding human-made sealant around the edges. The largest cub looked at her and made that musical sound again. This time it didn't sound sad. It sounded like a greeting. "Good job," Maya told the cub. "You're all doing great work." The adult Keitharans paused in their weaving. Elder Zephinus, the leader of their group, turned to look at Maya. Zephinus was much larger than the cubs, and her crystal fur had grown into beautiful patterns over many years. Zephinus spoke in her own language. The ship's computer tried to translate, but the words came out confused and broken. Dr. Blake was taking pictures with his computer pad. "This is revolutionary. I've never seen Keitharans work as a team before." Maya kept working on the patch. The cubs moved closer to her, still spinning their crystal threads. They worked alongside her like they had done this many times before. "Maya," Dr. Blake said, his voice full of excitement. "They're coordinating their work with yours. Look at how they adjust their thread pattern to match what you're doing." Maya looked and saw he was right. The cubs were watching her hands and changing their work to fit with hers. It was like they could understand what she was trying to do. The middle cub made a different sound, higher and more musical than before. The other 2 cubs responded with their own sounds. Soon all 3 were making a harmony together. "They're talking to each other," Dr. Blake breathed. "But Keitharans rarely vocalize and never in harmony." Elder Zephinus made a deep, rumbling sound. The cubs immediately stopped their music and focused on their work again. "I think she told them to concentrate," Maya said. "But how do you know that?" "Body language. Watch how they all straightened up when she made that sound." The patch was almost complete. Maya could feel the air pressure getting better. The dangerous leak was being stopped. The smallest cub had finished its section of the patch. Instead of moving away like Maya expected, it came closer to her. It touched her arm very gently with one of its front paws. Maya looked down at the cub. Its purple eyes seemed to be saying, "Thank you. You're welcome," Maya said softly. Dr. Blake was writing notes as fast as he could. "The cubs are showing gratitude. Keitharans don't typically express emotions toward other species. Maybe they do when someone helps their family," Maya said. The patch was finished. The air had stopped leaking out. Section 7 was safe again. Elder Zephinus approached Maya. The large Keitharan moved slowly and carefully. When she was close, she made a series of musical sounds that the computer couldn't translate. "I think she's thanking me too," Maya said. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Blake said. "Everything about this situation goes against what we know about Keitharan behavior." Maya was putting away her repair tools when she noticed something else. The 3 cubs were still close to her, but they were also staying near the adult Keitharans. Before today, the cubs had always seemed separate from the adults. "They're acting like a family now," Maya observed. "What do you mean?" "Look at them. The cubs are positioned between me and the adults. They're including me in their family group." Dr. Blake looked where Maya pointed. She was right. The cubs had arranged themselves so that Maya was inside their family circle, not outside it. The ship's alarm stopped ringing. Captain Chen's voice came through the communication system. "All clear. Enemy ships have retreated. Good work, everyone." Maya smiled at the Keitharan family. "We did good work," she said to all of them. The cubs made their musical sounds again. This time, Elder Zephinus joined in with her deeper voice. It sounded like a song of victory. Dr. Blake shook his head in amazement. "I need to completely rewrite my research. These creatures are nothing like what we thought they were." Maybe they just needed the right situation to show us who they really are, Maya said. As they prepared to leave Section 7, the cubs formed their usual line behind Maya. But now the adult Keitharans followed too. The whole family walked with Maya back toward the main part of the ship. This changes everything, Dr. Blake muttered, still taking notes. Maya looked back at her unusual escort. The Keitharan family walked with dignity and purpose. They had chosen to trust her. They had chosen to work with her. And now they had chosen to include her in their group. I don't think it changes everything, Maya said. I think it just shows us that some things never change. What do you mean? Maya smiled as the smallest cub caught up to walk beside her instead of behind her. Family is family, no matter what planet you come from. The morning after the pirate attack, Elder Zephinus asked to meet with the ship's officers. This was unusual because the adult Keitharans rarely spoke to humans. They preferred to stay in their own section of the ship and mind their own business. Captain Chen called a meeting in the main conference room. Maya sat at the long table with the captain, Dr. Blake, Danny Park, and Jake Miller. The room had large windows that showed the stars outside. Elder Zephinus entered the room slowly. Her crystal fur caught the light and made beautiful patterns on the walls. She was much taller than the humans, even when she lowered herself to what seemed like a respectful position. 2 other adult Keitharans came with her. They stayed near the door while Zephinus moved closer to the table. We must speak of the young ones, Zephinus said. Her voice came through the ship's translation system, but it still carried musical tones that made everyone listen carefully. The cubs? Captain Chen asked. What about them? They have done something we have never seen before. Zephinus turned her large purple eyes toward Maya. Something that should not be possible for our kind. Dr. Blake leaned forward eagerly. What exactly did they do? They chose to work with others. They chose to follow. They chose to belong. The room was quiet for a moment. Outside the windows, stars twinkled in the black space. I don't understand, Captain Chen said. Isn't that normal behavior for young creatures? No, Zephinus replied. Not for Keitharans. From the moment we are born, we are independent. We do not seek approval. We do not form dependencies. We do not attach ourselves to others. This is our strength, but it is also our isolation. Jake Miller spoke up. So young Keitharans don't normally stay with their parents? They stay physically near for safety when very small, but emotionally, mentally, we are separate from the moment of birth. We do not bond as other species do. Dr. Blake was writing notes quickly. This explains why all our research showed Keitharans as solitary creatures. Yes, we are proud of our independence. We see it as the highest form of existence. To need no one, to depend on no one, to choose one's path alone. Zephinus paused. But the young ones have shown us something different. What do you mean? Maya asked. It was the first time she had spoken since the meeting began. Zephinus looked directly at her. You have taught them that independence and connection are not opposites. I haven't taught them anything special. I just treated them like individuals. That is exactly what you taught them. Zephinus moved closer to Maya's chair. Most species, when they interact with others, create expectation. They want something in return for their kindness. But you offered friendship without requiring it to be accepted. Danny Park looked confused. What's the difference? The difference is choice, Zephinus explained. When someone expects you to respond to their kindness, your response is not truly free. You respond because you feel you must, not because you want to. But Maya expected the cubs to like her, didn't she? Jake asked. No, Maya said quietly. I didn't expect anything, I just included them in my daily routine. If they wanted to be part of it, fine. If they didn't, that was fine too. Zephinus made a sound like approval. Yes. You created space for connection without demanding it. Dr. Blake put down his writing pad. So the cubs followed Maya because she gave them genuine choice? More than that, Zephinus replied. She showed them that choosing to connect with others does not mean losing independence. The cubs learned they could be themselves and still be part of something larger. Captain Chen looked thoughtful. Is this why they worked together during the emergency yesterday? Yes. They discovered that cooperation does not require surrender of self. They could help fix the ship and still remain individual Keitharans. Maya felt strange hearing her simple actions described this way. I really didn't do anything special. You did something most beings cannot do, Safina said. You offered relationship without need. I don't understand what that means. When most creatures approach others, they do so because they need something. Companionship, validation, help, entertainment. The need creates pressure. The other being feels that pressure and responds to it rather than to genuine desire for connection. Dr. Blake nodded slowly. So the Cubs felt pressure from other crew members? Not pressure exactly, but expectation. When others tried to interact with the Cubs sensed that the humans wanted something from them. A response, a reaction, proof that the interaction was successful. And Maya was different how? Captain Chen asked. Maya wanted nothing, Zephinus said simply. She offered her presence and her kindness freely. The Cubs could take it or leave it. There was no pressure, no expectation, no hidden need. Maya thought about this. I guess I just figured they were like anyone else. Some people want to talk, some don't. Some want company, some prefer to be alone. Exactly. You treated them as complete beings with their own preferences, not as problems to be solved or opportunities to prove your worth. Jake Miller was shaking his head. This is hard to understand. Don't we all want something when we interact with others? Usually, yes, Zephinus agreed. But some humans seem capable of genuine generosity of spirit. They can give without taking, offer without requiring, love without possessing. And that's unusual in the galaxy? Captain Chen asked. Very unusual. Most species we have encountered are transactional in their relationships. Even when they mean well, they are exchanging something for something else. Dr. Blake looked at Maya with new respect. So Maya's approach worked because it was genuinely selfless. Not selfless, Zephinus corrected. Self-complete. Maya did not need the Cubs to like her to feel good about herself. She was content to be kind whether they responded or not. Maya felt uncomfortable being the center of attention. Can we talk about the Cubs instead of me? Zephinus made a sound that might have been laughter. The Cubs are healthy and happy. They have learned something new about what it means to be Keitharan. What have they learned? They have learned that choice, when it is truly free, is the most powerful force in the universe. And they have chosen to expand their understanding of independence to include selected connections. Danny Park asked, does this mean they'll stay with the ship? That is their choice to make. But I believe they will choose to remain for a while longer. They are learning much from observing human behavior. Learning what? Captain Chen wanted to know. They are learning that strength comes not from isolation, but from the courage to remain yourself while connecting with others. Zephinus looked around the room at all the humans. This is something Keitharans have never understood before. Maya stood up. I should go check on them. They are waiting for you in the hallway, Zephinus said, with what sounded like amusement. Maya went to the door and opened it. Sure enough, all three Cubs were sitting outside the conference room. They looked up at her with their bright purple eyes. How long have you been waiting here? She asked them. The largest Cub made a soft musical sound. Maya laughed. Come on then. Let's go do our morning security check. The Cubs stood up happily and formed their usual line behind her. Zephinus watched through the open door. Do you see? She called to the others in the room. Maya leaves and they choose to follow. Not because they must, not because she expects it, but because they genuinely want to. Dr. Blake watched Maya and the Cubs disappear down the hallway. And that makes all the difference? That makes all the difference in the universe, Zephinus confirmed. Choice freely given is the foundation of all meaningful relationships. Captain Chen smiled. I think we're all learning something new about friendship. As the meeting ended, each crew member left with new thoughts about their own relationships. Maya had shown them something simple but profound, the difference between demanding connection and offering it. Outside in the hallway, Maya continued. Her daily routine with 3 alien cubs who had chosen her friendship freely. And in that choice lay a lesson that would change how humans and Keitharans understood each other forever. News about the Keitharan cubs traveled fast through space. Within days, the Starbound was receiving messages from scientists all over the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know how a human security officer had achieved something that experts thought was impossible. Dr. Blake spent most of his time answering communications. His small office was filled with screens showing the faces of curious researchers from dozens of different planets. Yes, the cubs are definitely showing unprecedented social behavior, he explained to a group of scientists from the inner worlds. They work together, they follow a human crew member, and they seem to have developed emotional attachments. On another screen, a blue-skinned researcher from Centauri Prime was asking questions. Have you isolated the specific actions that triggered this response? We're still studying that, Dr. Blake replied. But it seems to center around one particular human's approach to interaction. Maya walked past his office carrying her daily security reports. Behind her, the 3 cubs followed in their usual line. They had grown larger over the past few weeks. Their crystal fur was becoming more colorful as they matured. Dr. Blake waved her into his office. Maya, could you explain to these researchers what you do differently with the cubs? Maya looked at all the faces on the screens. Some of the alien researchers looked excited, others looked confused, a few looked skeptical. I don't do anything differently, Maya said. I treat them the same way I treat everyone else. A researcher with tentacles instead of arms asked, Could you be more specific? What exactly is your interaction protocol? My what? Your systematic approach to interspecies communication, the researcher clarified. Maya looked at Dr. Blake for help. I don't have a systematic approach. I just talk to them. But what do you talk about? Asked a scientist whose species looked like large insects. Normal things. How they're doing. What I'm working on. Sometimes I tell them stories about Earth. The screens filled with excited chatter. Researchers were taking notes and talking among themselves in languages the ship's computer couldn't translate. Stories? Asked the blue-skinned scientist. You share cultural narratives with them? I guess. Sometimes I tell them about my hometown or my family or funny things that happened when I was growing up. More excited discussion erupted from the screens. Maya was starting to feel overwhelmed by all the attention. Do the cubs respond to these stories? Someone asked. Sometimes they make sounds, or they move closer, or they tilt their heads like they're listening carefully. Dr. Blake was writing notes frantically. Maya, you never mentioned the storytelling before. You never asked. Besides, I don't know if they understand the stories. I just figured it was nice to share. A researcher who looked like a cat but walked on 2 legs spoke up. Lieutenant Rodriguez, are you aware that narrative sharing is considered one of the most intimate forms of communication among social species? No, I didn't know that. When you tell someone stories about your past, you are sharing your identity with them. You are inviting them to understand who you are as an individual. Maya thought about this. I suppose that's true. But I wasn't trying to be intimate or anything. I was just being friendly. The tentacled researcher made a sound like laughter, but that's exactly the point. You were being authentically friendly without trying to achieve a specific result. Dr. Blake paused in his note-taking. Maya, how do you decide what stories to tell them? I don't really decide. I just talk about whatever comes to mind. Like yesterday, I was telling them about the first time I saw snow. And how did they react? The smallest one made this soft sound and touched my hand with her paw. It felt like she was trying to comfort me because I was homesick. The screens erupted in discussion again. Several researchers were arguing with each other in their own languages. The cat-like researcher spoke above the noise. Lieutenant, do you believe the cubs understand your emotions? I think they understand when I'm sad or happy or worried. They don't understand the details, but they pick up on the feelings. And do you respond to their emotions in return? Maya nodded. Of course. If one of them seems scared or upset, I try to help them feel better. How? The same way I'd help anyone. I speak gently. I give them space if they need it. Sometimes I just sit with them quietly until they feel better. Dr. Blake looked up from his notes. Maya, you've essentially created a mutual emotional support system with the cubs. Is that bad? It's remarkable. You've established genuine two-way emotional communication with a species that's supposed to be incapable of emotional attachment. One of the researchers, An elderly human woman from a distant colony spoke carefully. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, I've studied interspecies relations for 40 years. What you've accomplished should be impossible according to everything we know about Keitharan psychology." "Maybe what we know is wrong," Maya suggested. "Or maybe," said the blue-skinned scientist, "the conditions for Keitharan social behavior are more specific than we realized." Dr. Blake looked interested. "What do you mean?" "I mean, perhaps Keitharans are capable of social connection, but only under very particular circumstances." The cat-like researcher nodded. "Circumstances that Lieutenant Rodriguez has accidentally created." "What kind of circumstances?" Maya asked. "Complete emotional safety," the elderly human woman replied. "No pressure, no expectations, no judgment, no demands for reciprocation." Maya thought about her daily interactions with the cubs. "I guess that's true. I never expect them to do anything special. I just enjoy their company." "And that's exactly what makes it work," Dr. Blake said with excitement. "You've created the perfect environment for Keitharan social development." The tentacled researcher made another sound like laughter. "The irony is that Lieutenant Rodriguez achieved this breakthrough by not trying to achieve anything at all." Over the following days, more researchers contacted the ship. Some wanted to visit in person. Others requested detailed reports about every interaction between Maya and the cubs. Captain Chen called Maya to her office one afternoon. "Maya, we've received requests from 12 different research institutions. They all want to study you and the cubs." "That sounds awful," Maya said honestly. Captain Chen smiled. "I thought you might feel that way. So I've made a decision. We'll allow one research team to visit, but only if they agree to observe without interfering." "What does that mean?" "It means they can watch and take notes, but they can't run experiments or change how you interact with the cubs." Maya felt relieved. "That sounds better. There's something else. The cubs have been growing quickly. Elders Affinis says they'll be considered adults soon by Keitharan standards." "What happens then?" "Normally, young Keitharans would leave their family group and go off on their own. But these cubs might make a different choice." Maya looked out the captain's window. She could see the 3 cubs in the observation lounge below. They were playing together, something that young Keitharans supposedly never did. "What kind of different choice?" "They might choose to stay with the ship as cultural ambassadors. It would be the first time in recorded history that adult Keitharans chose to work with another species." Maya felt a strange mix of pride and worry. Would that be good for them? "I think that depends on what they truly want. And thanks to you, they seem to have learned that they can choose what they want without fear." That evening, Maya was doing her security rounds when she found the 3 cubs waiting for her by her office door. They looked different somehow. More serious, more grown up. The largest cub approached her and made a complex series of musical sounds. Maya had never heard anything like it before. "I wish I knew what you were trying to tell me," she said softly. The cub pressed its side against her leg, just like it had done when it was smaller, but now it was almost as tall as Maya's waist. "Whatever you choose to do when you grow up, I want you to know something," Maya said. "You've taught me a lot about friendship. Real friendship is about choice, isn't it? You choose to be here with me, and I choose to be here with you." All 3 cubs made soft musical sounds together. It sounded like agreement. Maya smiled and continued her security round with her unusual friends following behind her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new choices. But tonight they were simply together by choice, and that was enough. 6 months after the first cubs started following Maya, the Starbound had become famous throughout the galaxy. Ships arrived weekly carrying researchers, diplomats, and curious visitors who wanted to see the impossible friendship between humans and Keitharans. The 3 cubs were now fully grown. They stood as tall as Maya's shoulders, and their crystal fur had developed into beautiful adult patterns. Each one was unique, with different colors and designs that showed their individual personalities. But the most amazing change was that they had officially requested to join the ship's crew. For the first time in recorded history, adult Keitharans wanted to work alongside another species. Captain Chen held a ceremony to welcome them as official crew members. The main assembly hall was packed with humans and the adult Keitharan family. The 3 new crew members stood proudly at the front of the room. "Today we welcome our newest crew members," Captain Chen announced. "They will serve as cultural liaison officers, helping us better understand interspecies cooperation." The largest of the 3, who had chosen the human name Crystal, stepped forward. She had learned to use the ship's translation system perfectly. "We thank the crew of Starbound for accepting us," Crystal said. Her musical voice filled the room. "We especially thank Security Officer Maya Rodriguez for teaching us that independence and friendship can exist together." Everyone applauded. Maya felt embarrassed by all the attention, but she was also proud of how much the Cubs had grown and learned. After the ceremony, Ambassador Helen Cross from the Galactic Council asked to interview Maya. Helen was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had come to write an official report about the human-Ketheran partnership. They sat in a quiet conference room with a view of the stars. Helen had a small recording device on the table between them. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, your methods have been studied by researchers across the galaxy. Can you explain what made your approach successful when others had failed?" Maya looked out at the stars. 2 more ships filled with curious scientists were waiting to dock with the Starbound. "I think most people approach first contact like it's a puzzle they need to solve. They want to figure out what they need to do to get the response they're looking for. And that's wrong. It's not wrong exactly, but it's not really respectful either. When you need someone to respond to you in a certain way, you stop seeing them as a person and start seeing them as a problem to fix." Ambassador Cross nodded thoughtfully. "So your approach was different how?" "I approached them like they were neighbors who might not want to talk to me, and that was perfectly okay." Maya smiled as she remembered the early days with the Cubs. "I offered friendship without needing them to accept it. Can you give me a specific example?" "Sure. When I did my security rounds, I would say good morning to them. But I didn't wait for a response or feel bad if they ignored me. I just included them in my routine and let them decide if they wanted to be part of it. And eventually they chose to participate? Eventually they chose to follow me around. But even then I never demanded their attention or expected them to behave in any particular way." Ambassador Cross made notes on her computer pad. "Other researchers have tried to replicate your methods with limited success. Why do you think that is?" Maya thought carefully before answering. "I think it's because they're still trying to get a specific result. They're being nice because they want the aliens to like them, but the aliens can sense that need and it makes the whole interaction feel fake. So genuine indifference to the outcome is necessary?" "Not indifference exactly. I cared about the Cubs' well-being. I wanted them to be happy and healthy, but I didn't need them to like me to feel good about myself. That's a subtle distinction. Maybe, but I think it's important. When you genuinely don't need someone to validate you, they're free to choose whether they want to connect with you." Through the window, Maya could see Crystal and the other 2 Ketherans working alongside human crew members in the corridor below. They moved with confidence and purpose, clearly comfortable in their new roles. "What do you think the implications are for future interspecies relations?" Ambassador Cross asked. "I think we need to stop approaching other species as problems to solve and start approaching them as individuals worthy of respect. Even if they reject our offers of friendship? Especially then. Real respect means accepting someone's right to say no. And when you truly accept that right, sometimes they surprise you by saying yes instead." Ambassador Cross smiled. "You make it sound simple. It is simple. But simple doesn't mean easy." Maya watched as Crystal turned to look up at the conference room window. The young Ketheran raised one paw in greeting and Maya waved back. "What's the difference?" "Simple means there are no complicated rules or techniques to learn. Easy means it doesn't require any personal growth or change. And this approach requires personal growth?" Maya nodded. "You have to become the kind of person who can offer kindness without needing anything in return. You have to be secure enough in yourself that other people's choices don't threaten your sense of worth. Is that common among humans?" "I don't know if it's common, but I think it's possible for most people to develop. It just takes practice and self-awareness." Ambassador Cross turned off her recording device. "One final question, off the record. What do you think would have happened if the Cubs had never chosen to follow you?" Maya considered this. "I would have been disappointed, but I would have respected their choice. I would have continued saying good morning to them and treating them kindly, but I wouldn't have pushed for more. And you would have been content with that?" "I think so. There's something satisfying about treating others well just because it's the right thing to do, regardless of whether they reciprocate." That evening, Maya was finishing her duty shift when Crystal approached her. The young Ketheran had something in her front paws. I wanted to give you this, Crystal said, offering Maya a small object. Maya took it and examined it carefully. It was a piece of crystal sculpture, delicate and beautiful. The light passing through it created tiny rainbows. Did you make this? Maya asked. We all made it together. It represents our family bond. Maya looked closer and saw that the sculpture had 4 main sections, all connected but distinct. 4 sections for 4 individuals? Yes. 3 Keitharans and 1 human who chose to include us in her life. Maya felt tears in her eyes. Thank you. It's beautiful. Maya, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you never try to change us? Other humans always want us to be more like them, or they want to become more like us. But you seemed content for us to just be ourselves. Maya thought about the question. I guess I figured you were already perfect the way you were. If you wanted to change or grow, that was your choice. But I liked you exactly as you were. Crystal made a soft musical sound that Maya had learned meant happiness. That's why we chose you. You saw us as complete individuals from the beginning. And that made a difference? It made all the difference. When someone sees you as complete, you feel free to grow. When someone sees you as broken, you feel pressure to fix yourself to earn their approval. Maya smiled. I learned that from you too. You accepted me exactly as I was without trying to change me or fix me. We chose each other, Crystal said simply. Yes, we did. As Maya prepared to leave for the day, she looked around at the ship that had become home to one of the galaxy's most unusual friendships. The Starbound continued its mission of exploration and research, but now it carried something extra. Proof that genuine respect and freely given choice could bridge any gap between species. The cubs had grown into confident adults who contributed valuable perspectives to the crew. Maya had learned that true friendship was about offering without expecting and loving without possessing. And the galaxy had discovered that some of its most fundamental assumptions about interspecies relations were wrong. In her quarters that night, Maya placed the crystal sculpture on her desk where it would catch the morning light. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities for growth. But tonight she was content knowing that she had helped 3 young beings discover they could be themselves and still belong to something larger. The choice to connect across species had changed everything. Not because it was forced or expected, but because it was freely made by individuals who respected each other enough to allow that freedom. Maya fell asleep to the soft sounds of Keitharan night songs drifting through the ship's corridors. The cubs had grown up, but they had never stopped choosing to be part of her extended family. And in that ongoing choice lay the foundation for a new understanding of what friendship could be across the vast distances of space.